If we just dismiss it to say that why the hurry to do it now, I think it is a bit too simplistic.
And in fact, the government has been talking about the GST
Yes.
even way before,
Way
a couple years
before.
ago, 2005.
Yes.
It's a very long time.
Exactly.
Yes.
So a lot of analysis and assessment has gone into that. All right. So let's shift gears a little and talk about an issue that I do want to touch base upon at the risk of sounding like a broken record. Affordable housing. So it remains a concern. You know, we do see a lot of measures that are already in place, and we see the Malaysian house price index moderating over the past couple of years. But, you know, certainly affordable housing remains a concern, especially for people on the ground, especially for the youth. Do you think that the government needs to do more on this?
I think the government, in the budget, there is something for youth housing. But that, it looked as if it was a very good idea, but it was, the maximum number of houses is only 20,000. So that's not going to be able to meet the demand.
Out of a large
The demand is
population of
huge.
people.
So this is a problem. Affordable housing in our society, in my view, is linked to low income. If you have low income, it's very difficult to meet the housing demand. So the problem is how do you raise income quick enough so that people would earn enough and leaving disposable income and savings towards housing.
All right, okay. So we have a little bit more time, and I do want to talk about this issue. I would like to quote from the budget, one of my favorite lines: "Indeed, women are special. Their uniqueness not only adds grace to the family, but they also play a crucial role in addressing life's challenges. And the government recognizes that women have a pivotal role in national development and in nurturing future generations." So there was a whole strategy, the fifth strategy, on upholding the role of women. So Yin Sin, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and maybe you can also explain to us why only a small percentage of the total population are women.
Okay, if you look at the 29 million Malaysian population, we are looking at about 14 odd million women in Malaysia, and of which we are looking at 52.4% of women at the workforce. So that gives us another 7 odd million women not working, staying at home, not producing, not adding value to the society. So your question is, why is it low? Well, we all know that childbearing, most of the time responsibility lies in the women, in the wife at home. Men will somehow focus on growth, women on security. That's traditionally the psyche of gender. So finally, having gender responsive budgeting in our national budget is a good news to many of us who work in the public policy arena, because we have been advocating for the longest time that Malaysia needs to look at this. We can be gender blind in many things, in other policies, but when it comes to allocating budget and designing policies, we have to be gender biased. Not to say gender biased, but we need to take into account of different needs, different consideration of women, of children, the disabled, instead of just generalizing the entire population as this is the one-size-fits-for-all policy.
So you do see a bright future
of
for
course,
the women in the workforce in Malaysia?
Yes, of course, yeah. The importance of gender-responsive budgeting and the need to have it is that not only at the designing of the policy stage, it is also at the implementation, the monitoring, and then the evaluation stage. So I would say that this is the first baby steps of many, many steps that we need to take in our society.
That's good
but
news.
it's a good thing that we see it today, because gender-responsive budgeting, it's nothing new in many developed society, but perhaps it is very new in Malaysia.
And Mr. Kang, would you like to say anything at all?
There's something very interesting here about training women to be directors of board of companies. And in my view, I think there is a lack of gender diversity in boardrooms in Malaysia.
In the corporate sector?
In the corporate sector. But the question is, how do you train somebody to be on the board? I think there are enough women who are capable of sitting on the board.
Of course.
The question is, how do you identify them? how do you identify enough of them? Perhaps I think you can add on to that. You know, I don't know how do you identify, but training them is not the answer. There are enough out there.
I think, as you said, identifying them or identifying us is one step, the beginning of many steps. But if I remember correctly, this training of directors are only open for women above 40 years old. And I think this is a restricting policy because I don't know who put the clause in there for only for women above 40 years old are eligible to apply. So does that mean that policies made by men, I'm just assuming that this policy is made by men, that women below the age of 40 are not capable enough to sit on board? So I don't know. I don't know who put this policy in place, but it's actually a question that I would like to put forward. But of course, identification is a problem when you have a very chauvinistic society, or when you have got most of the decision makers made out of men. Of course, when you hang out, when you go to pubs, when you play golf, and when you hang out with men. So when men hang out with men within your social circle, and it makes it very difficult for women to penetrate into that social circle. So then how would men know of another capable woman who's capable of doing something else that the men wouldn't know of simply because you are not exposed to them?
That remains a question that we would all like an answer to, but unfortunately, we are coming towards the end of the show. But I would like to allow for some time for some concluding remarks. So, Kang, maybe we can start off with you. Really, the budget 2015 had 3 focal points: stimulating economic growth, strengthening the fiscal position, and addressing the rising cost of living. Do you think, very quickly, that the budget lives up to this?
I think it's done the balancing act for this. But the 3 objectives are in tension with each other. The issue which I'm concerned about is this cash and handouts, the brims. The question I ask myself is this likely to be an ongoing feature? So are you substituting a subsidy with brim? So that's not going to help. That is my concern.
Okay, thank you for that. And Yin Sin, how do you think the budget has progressed thus far? You know, has it been able to maintain continuity over the years in line with reaching the ultimate objective?
I think one point to note about this budget is that 2015 is going to be the beginning of the 11 Malaysia plan, which is going to be the last lap for Malaysia plan to bring to Malaysia towards a high income and developed nation by year 2020. And therefore, what we are seeing in the 2015 budget, it's lack of a better word, will be a patch-up work for the government. So whatever project that's not exactly being done or not yet completed in the 10 Malaysia plan would have to be completed within 2015, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, we will not be able to develop towards the 11 Malaysia plan, even though Malaysia plan, the 10 Malaysia plan and the 11 Malaysia plan that we will soon see in the middle of next year is going to be the rolling plan. It's no longer going to be the 5-year plan with the midterm review and then we start a new plan after 5 years. So what I would say about this budget is that I think it is a rather fair, inclusive budget that covers almost every segment of the society, even though of course there will be society that will get more focus and some will get less. That's just normal. But what I would say is that this inclusive and focused budget, in terms of infrastructure development, we see a lot of infrastructure development, and the emphasis on human capital is something essential for Malaysia to move forward as a developed nation. And knowing that Malaysia is going to assume the chairmanship of ASEAN next year, the role of government to uplift our SMEs and our young entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs in Malaysia to be able to compete in the regional market and to position Malaysia as a regional hub for many things. It's also something that we cannot discount from this budget. And I think it's a rather fair and competitive, progressive budget, I would say.
All right, thank you for that insight. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have today on NTV7's 2015 budget program. Thank you once again to our esteemed studio guests, Kang Beng Ho from TaxSend and Yin Sin from Asli. Thank you for that very fruitful but quick discussion. And thank you to all our viewers for tuning in. We hope you've gained some insight into the budget 2015. Now, for a recap of the budget, tune into our news bulletins, edisi 7 at 7 p.m. and 7 edition on prime time. Until next year, I'm Amy Ghani. Have a productive weekend ahead.